Lime Books present Overpopulation by Robert Salisbury. Episode 7, Global Reset, A Tale of Cupidity. Scene 1, Ex Manus Capare. It was the morning after Zara and Philip had reacquainted themselves. A cool wind blew litter along the pavements of London. Buses, cars, and motorbikes swarmed along her streets. A tantalizing glimpse of blue sky peeped through the swiftly moving cloud. Indoors, Zara slipped into her skirt, pulled it up to her waist, rotated it into position, and zipped. She fed both arms into her blouse and began doing up the tiny row of ivory buttons that led to the neck. The process was therapeutic. As her fingers manipulated the buttons, she observed his head on the pillow, his legs poking from the sheets. It felt wonderful to be back together, to make love, as they had done the night before. She went downstairs to the kitchen and prepared a hot drink. The radio was playing a melody of familiar songs from the Zeros. She checked her reflection, dabbed her hair into place, and rubbed her lips together. Her ordeal had lasted days, but had felt like months. It was something she had refused to explain to Philip. They had agreed to rush their wedding forward. Banks had ditched the idea of moving into the house in Buckinghamshire in favour of a 5-storey Georgian terrace in Mayfair, from where he imagined Zara would feel more comfortable. He had told her that they would make a beautiful home together. As Banks lay on the bed, silent, but for the regular rasp of his breathing, unbeknownst to him, Zara was sending messages to a real estate agent overseas. She did not intend eating meals alone for the rest of her days, or having their special moments disturbed by his work. They had the money, and she felt that to work was a waste of life. She intended to show him how good life could be. Scene 2, Lady Elizabeth's Ultimatum. Lady Elizabeth found herself in high spirits. She had for many years been imagining life without the cantankerous old brute. His declining health presented an opportunity. She confided in Philip Banks, who had listened to her concerns and who had advised her to put them to the Delange Martin legal team. "You must take action immediately," he had told her. "And don't let them bully you. Be forceful," he had warned. The man on security at Delange Martin head office reception noticed red text flashing on his phone. However, before him a tall lady was attempting to pass through the security barrier. It was more pressing. He wandered over. "May I help you?" "Open this barrier." She was imperious looking. "Do you have a pass?" "A pass?" "Do you have an appointment with someone?" "I am Lady Elizabeth." The man on security had had years of training. "May I have some identification, please?" Lady Elizabeth was a muscular woman, a good 3 inches taller than the man on security. She slapped his face hard. It hurt. "Get out of my way, you stupid, foolish man!" The barrier would still not let her through. Other security rushed to their assistance. They knew who she was and opened the barriers for her. "Take me to the legal department." Being eager not to annoy her any more, security escorted her to level 14, which was legal. Delange Martin were the sole tenant of the building, and each floor was large enough to accommodate hundreds of workers. Having reached level 14, Lady Elizabeth walked through the open-plan office. She could make neither head nor tail of it. There were clusters of desks with side offices, plants and sofas and screens for showing film, breakout areas with fruit and books, and ping-pong tables, and kitchenettes and dark corners for discussion groups, and staff, hundreds of staff. "Who is in charge here?" Security introduced her to a slight woman in her mid-30s. "Jane McAllister, ma'am, barrister in charge of legal affairs. It is a great pleasure to meet you." She had wanted to add a feminist comment about it being encouraging to see a powerful woman in the DM offices, but she was cut short. "You are not the boss." Jane looked offended. "Well, I am in charge of—" "Who is your boss?" "James Wrightson Ellison, ma'am. He is head of this whole floor." "You mean there are other floors for legal?" "Yes, ma'am. 22. There are 22 floors for legal." "Who is the top boss? The king of all legal for Delange Martin. Who deals with my husband?" "Why, that would be Sir Thomas Longbow, ma'am. And what floor is he on?" Jane McAllister gulped. I really don't know, ma'am. To be honest, I have never met him." Lady Elizabeth shoved Jane McAllister so hard that she fell over backwards. "You stupid little girl! You! Where does Lord Martin hold his meetings?" In his boardroom, ma'am." "Take me there. Inform Sir Thomas that he is required in my presence with his full legal team in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later. The legal team sat anxiously around Lord Martin's table on the 68th floor. They were all dressed in black, with white shirts or blouses, and sat very quietly. Their smug expressions emanated abject condescension for Lady Elizabeth. Sir Thomas introduced his team. "Lady Elizabeth, may I say, on behalf of all the legal team at DM, that we are all saddened to hear of Lord Martin's health." "Stand!" Everyone waited for Sir Thomas Longbow to lead them. "Stand!" On her insistence, everyone stood. "Remove your footwear." I'm not sure. Sir Thomas, you will not speak unless I ask you to. Is that clear?" "Really, I must—" "You must what?" "Lord Martin is no longer with his faculty. I am assuming command of Delange Martin. You will present to me early next week all legal documentation to that effect." Sir Thomas allowed himself a small grin. "I will look into it most assiduously." "Sir Thomas, your long service at this company is noted. It was I who recommended you for knighthood. However, you have no rights of ownership to this company. I am informed that there are 22 levels in this building overflowing with ambitious lawyers. Don't imagine for one moment that I could not replace you." Lady Elizabeth began filing her nails. "Lady Elizabeth, you cannot just turn up here at these offices and impose your will." "Sir Thomas, when you joined our firm, you were a mere lawyer." "I have given my life to this firm." "You have been amply rewarded. You now must decide, as all of you must. Serve me or leave." No one moved. Head of Legal, Sir Thomas Longbow, spoke up. "Lady Elizabeth, may—" But Lady Elizabeth slammed her hand on the table. "One more word out of you—" "This is outrageous! I really—" "You will prepare documentation for my succession. I shall return on Monday. You will have everything ready for me to sign." Lady Elizabeth stood and walked from the room. No one spoke until she had gone and the door had shut. "Sir Thomas, does she have right of succession?" If Lord Martin is incapacitated, I am afraid she does. What are we going to do? We will draw up the papers for succession, for full control over operations to replace his lordship. There was a rumble of discontent. But we shall name Philip Banks as successor. The suggestion drew calm. It appeared to be a popular decision. Scene 3. A Whisper in the Valley. After the downing of Confucius I, Vitellius became paranoid. Strangers shadowing him caused him to believe that his life was at risk. He knew Premier Li Xiaoping would be out for revenge. He took the next flight to London, where he presented himself to Delange Martin. Eventually, he presented to Banks, where he had the gall to suggest a joint venture between himself and Delange Martin, with himself owning 1% of Warwings, without putting in any capital. In reply to his suggestion, Banks stated that, "You are as audacious as you are stupid." On the Sunday, Banks and Billy paid a visit to 22, who was busy at the Delange Martin research facilities in Somerset. 22 had developed a new weapon for British military, which he attempted to explain to them. "I call it the Whisper, because I developed it with hints from Spyron after I fed your father's book, The Final Solution, to it. It works on triangulation. 3 highly charged rays of light, invisible to the naked eye, are fired from 3 separate locations. The point at which they meet causes the air to boil through intense disturbance. It is like a microwave oven that can be targeted with pinpoint accuracy." They had positioned themselves outside and were armed with binoculars. Banks stood on the ridge overlooking a valley. Using his binoculars, he could see a man walking by himself in the valley. "Look, over there!" Billy pointed out a low-flying plane coming from the west. It was heading towards another plane approaching from the east. The man walking in the valley was quite short and appeared distracted. He appeared disorientated, as though he were lost. His suit was a little too smart for a walk in the countryside. Banks smiled. Billy then spotted the third plane. "Here she comes!" The third plane shot over their head, at an angle to the line between the other 2 planes. As they intersected at different altitudes above the valley, the man walking along collapsed in a heap. "Well, it works," stated 22. Banks zoomed in on the figure. It didn't appear to be moving. "Sterling work, 22. That's the end of Vitellius, then." Scene 4. The Exodus. Lord Martin's eyesight was failing. His dementia exacerbated. He couldn't stop scratching at his neck. Perhaps due to his age and the number of organs he had replaced, the rate of deterioration of his bodily functions accelerated. Banks and Billy visited him with a number of important documents which needed his signature. They met him walking carefully around his grounds with a walking stick. Billy was genuinely concerned. "Good news, George. We have dealt with China." "Warwings is ours, my lord," added Banks. 1.69 trillion. Lord Martin continued walking. "Well done." "We have papers for you to sign, George." Billy held Lord Martin's arm as he stopped to accept a pen from Banks, with which to sign the contracts. He scrawled his name across all the documents without checking. "Thank you, George." Billy witnessed the signatures and displayed more care and concern than Banks had seen ever before. "We need to get you to the airport, George." "What on earth for? I'm not going anywhere." "Tomorrow is Global Reset, George. You must." Billy's voice began to crack. "Lady Elizabeth is waiting." "You go. Don't worry about me. I'm too old. I don't deserve to live. Go without me." "George, if we don't get you to Ponta Delgada, we'll miss the shuttle to Pursuticus." "Enough! I am not going." They watched him walk away into his garden, knowing that he would not be persuaded. An hour later, Billy was urging Banks. "We're catching the jet from Northolt to Ponta Delgada." "Zara refuses to go," said Banks. It was hard for Billy to hear. His feelings were on show. "I have to pick up Bronwyn. Phil, whatever happens, make sure she comes. See you, Phil." DeLonge Martin's jets left Northolt, headed for Ponta Delgada, off the west coast of Africa. Aboard were board members of the city institutions, diplomats, the PM, David Noble, and Henry DeLonge, released from detention. From Russia, Peter Nikolai sent a message to DM stating that he would not be joining the other shadows aboard Pursuticus. He had built his own spacecraft, which he would stay aboard for the 10 days of Global Reset. As the jet landed on Ponta Delgada, they found Rashid bin Abdullah al-Fahim waiting, having already flown in from Jeddah aboard his own jet. Premier Li Xiaoping and his wife Sue were there too. They had originally planned to wait out Global Reset aboard Confucius-1, but since it had been shot down, they had softened their approach to Lord Martin and had been granted 6 seats. One noticeable absentee was Pope Boniface X. He had declined the offer to escape, stating that God would not look kindly on him for abandoning his people. He said that he would remain in the Vatican and pray. 2 shuttles left Earth, one from Florida, one from Ponta Delgada. Reuben boarded in Florida with his 23-year-old secretary and a handful of American captains of industry, ex-presidents, CEOs, some members of European royalty, and a cast of partners and indispensables who serviced them. Scene 5. Pursuticus. Pursuticus was the largest man-made object in space, a massive, grey spacecraft that had been orbiting the Earth for decades. Despite many viewings by enthusiasts, all of which had been discredited by NASA and other space agencies, Pursuticus was still a secret. She docked with 2 shuttles for refueling and loading of 194 passengers before opening her boosters and thrusting off towards the moon. Since he had not been able to persuade Zara to go, Banks had asked instead that she marry him. So, on the day of Global Reset, believing there to be a deadly infection that would wipe out billions, they attended a civil registry office, where, without pomp or ceremony, they were married. Zara was not fazed. She viewed Global Reset as nothing more than a ridiculous conspiracy. Day 1 passed without event. There were no reports of viruses, no news of illness, nothing unusual. By the dawn of Day 2, Banks became even more worried. He found Zara cooking in the kitchen and ran at her, shouting, "Don't run the taps! Don't touch the water!" "Oh, stop it," stated Zara. "I have brought you something. A ring?" "No, She opened a screen on the wall, and a flyover of a lush green rural property appeared on the wall. What do you think? It's a farm. It's an estate in Tanzania. Simon and Delilah's? No, ours. A newsflash appeared on the wall. Boom, boom. This is Idris Madaki for the BBC. Just visible to the naked eye at around 10 a.m. this morning, an exploding star could be seen entering the Earth's atmosphere. It raced over the southern Pacific Ocean, leaving a bright orange trail behind. The screen showed a tiny flare tracing a gentle arc across the sky. This is Idris Madaki reporting for the BBC, Morocco. Banks suddenly thought he would call 22. He had a sixth sense that the shooting star might be something significant. Hello, it's Philip here. Take it you've seen the news, then. Is that Prasutagus? Yes. Or was, so it now appears. Tell me, was Billy— No, Billy did not board. Neither did his lordship, or the professor. But Lady Elizabeth, Henry, Sir Thomas and the PM did. The BBC didn't know about Prasutagus then? No. What luck you were not aboard. Thank you, I'm glad you didn't board either. What about the virus? Is it still going to happen? No. I thought it was the plan. So did I. Banks detected a mysterious tone from 22. Spyron, or should I say Abigail, has other ideas. In fact, there are a lot of things not going to plan. It seems we are no longer in control of anything, if Abigail doesn't like it. I see. Banks was again unsure what 22 meant by that. Well, I'd like to say goodbye, and thank you for all you've done for me. Oh? Don't tell me you're going somewhere. Yes, my honeymoon. Don't tell me you've married Zara Fontaine, and you will be leaving DM and never coming back. How did you know that? Oh, let me think. Prasutagus goes up in flame, taking out the richest man in the Middle East, and you have married the first in line to his wealth? What? I must congratulate you. Quite ingenious, using Whisper to bring down Prasutagus. I didn't bring down Prasutagus, or use Whisper. I wouldn't know how to. And I didn't marry Zara because of her inheritance. Oh, really? I wasn't aware of it. Oh, really? Will you stop saying that in that tone of voice? Not how Lord Martin sees things. 22 hung up on him. Banks walked back into the kitchen, where Zara was at the stove stirring something. He put his arms around her waist. Good news? It seems the virus isn't going to happen. Zara turned around and put her arms around his neck. You see, I told you it was just a conspiracy. That shooting star in the news was Prasutagus, burning up with 200 of the world's most powerful men aboard. Good riddance, said Zara. Let's catch the plane to Tanzania, and we can be at our new home by tomorrow. Banks wasn't sure whether to frown or smile. His phone rang. Banks watched the small green light flashing. It would be Lord Martin. That'll be the Lord. Let me get this. He unlooped Zara's arms from his neck and strolled into the lounge area with his phone. Click. Lord Martin, what a surprise. Well done, Philip. Good work. The Lord was in his Wellington boots, walking across a field beyond the gardens that surrounded his manor. He had his new dog at his heels, who was wagging his tail. Here, boy! He threw a ring across the field, and the dog ran after it. "Sorry, my lord?" "I'm just talking to Cromwell, my new dog." "Oh." "I wanted to say thank you for shooting down Proseuticus." "I didn't shoot it down." "Oh, that's strange. Anyway, why don't you pop round to the manor tomorrow? I have another deal I'd like you to look at." "I'm sorry, my lord, but I'm on my honeymoon. Zara and I were married today." "Congratulations." "Thank you. And I have some other news. I appreciate all you have done for me over the years. It has been a privilege to work for yourself and Delange Martin, but I would like to ask your permission to resign. Zara and I will be emigrating to Tanzania, where we intend to live." Lord Martin sounded amused. "Is that so?" "Yes, my lord." "Philip, you once asked me how it is that I live so long. Well, I will let you in on a secret. It is not through surgery or medicine, or what you eat or drink. No. If you wish to live a long life, go for a walk, a stroll through the countryside, where one can contemplate amongst nature. That is the secret of a long life." "Thank you for telling me, and I really, sincerely appreciate all you have done for me." "Oh, Philip," and he laughed merrily, "take as long as you like. Just like your father, you will return. Not if, but when. You enjoy the game too much." Lord Martin hung up. "Here, boy," he whistled. "Come." Cromwell trotted towards him, his tongue hanging out the side of his jaw. "There's a good boy." He patted the dog's head, then straightened up and began to walk. The sun was low in the sky and capable of dazzling. The ground was damp, and his boots were caked in a layer of thick, sticky brown mud. He knew there were too many people in the world. But out in the Buckinghamshire countryside, he could be alone. He looked down at Cromwell and smiled. He watched the birds in the trees and stared at the sky, and all his cares drifted away. The end. You have been listening to Overpopulation, The Hidden Agenda for Global Reset, Book 3 in the Philip Banks Trilogy series by Robert Salisbury.